Sing for Hope brings the power of the arts to those who need it most. And today, that is all of us. The pandemic has brought loneliness front and center, and so many are unable to connect with anyone. So we are reaching out to them. And we're supporting our community of Broadway stars, Grammy winners, and artists from the world's great stages at a time when the industry is 95% dark. Now more than ever, your contribution means everything to Sing for Hope and the artists and communities we serve.
Hello to all our lovely audience joining us today. Welcome to the 19th YSBC Lecture Series. Our topic of conversation today is Sing for Hope, voicing the social imagination. And we have with us our speaker, Ms. Monica Yunus, co-founding director, Sing for Hope. Our wonderful moderator today is Mr. Werner, director of the Community Arts Lab. Soprano Miss Monica Yunus is the co-founder of Sing for Hope. She has performed with the world's leading opera companies, including the Metropolitan Opera, Washington National Opera, the Zouk Festival, and recitals in Spain, Guatemala, and her native Bangladesh. She has been named a 2016 Young Global Leader of the World Economic Forum, honored with the 21st Century Leaders Award as the New Yorker of the Week by NY1, and named one of the top 50 Americans in philanthropy by Town and Country. A leading voice in the artist as citizen discussion, she has performed and spoken at the Fortune's Most Powerful Women Summit, the Skoll World Forum, the Aspen Ideas Festival, and the United Nations. The daughter of Nobel Laureate, Professor Mohammad Yunus, Miss Monica Yunus is a graduate of the Juilliard School. So as you can see, we have a super talented speaker today, and we're really looking forward to hear from her. We also have our super talented moderator, Mr. Werner, who's also involved in the creative sector and concentrates on arts initiatives with a social impact and on creating international network in the field. He is the co-founder of the Community Arts Network. He has played many roles in his career, from co-founder of the Community Arts Network to being a CEO, an academic, and a collaborator with many renowned artists and institutions. So we're really excited for today's conversation, and let's not delay this further. I would like to welcome Professor Mohammad Yunus for his welcoming remarks to start this great session. Professor Yunus.
Thank you, Zina. Well, what can I say? Yeah, this is very important for me. It's very unusual, introducing my own daughter as the speaker. She's usually a singer, not a speaker, but she's a good speaker too. She's a superstar. That's what I can tell you. I don't want to give you the whole bio of her, but she's a superstar not now, right from the beginning when she was in grade schools, going to school and participating in all kinds of competitions. And I was wondering what's happening. So she's always number one and champion in every competition she joined, and continued until she went to Juilliard and finished that, and immediately she became a superstar. And I got the privilege of following her because she invites me into many things. The world that I never knew, world of music, world of opera, things that I never knew in my life. I got introduced to that. I enjoyed it. If I'm not doing what I do now, I'll probably offer myself as a manager for her just to stay around and see what's going on in that world. And all the superstars that we hear about, you see how they interact with each other, because that's the plane she works around, and I have the privilege of being close to all those opera sopranos and all the other stars that you have. That the important thing which really excites me in her work, that not only she is a superstar in her own world, she used her capacity and talent to bring life to the poor people. And that's what led to the creation of Sing for Hope. That's what she will explain what it is. And of the Sing for Hope, one particular thing I like, and I wait for that every summer, when she puts up so many pianos in New York City. That's the largest public arts project, as they call it. happens every summer. And I had no idea that people love those pianos, and beautifully decorated, beautifully painted, each one of them. But it looks like some kind of a toy, and beautifully wrapped in beautiful colors and so on. Kids love it, old people love it, senior people love it, senior citizens love it, everybody loves it. So we have to kind of bring the whole city in a different context. So these are the things that brought her into the work that she does. She will be speaking today. And I'm very happy that she brings along Werner. I didn't realize that I met Werner in many occasions, but today I was telling him that I have discovered him reading his bio. I see we are doing the same thing. What he does with its music, and this is precisely what we are trying to reach out to people, bring life in the music world, to open them up for many things that is not done. Music is always thought about something far away from bottom people. It's not. It's very much part of the rooted in the people and in the heart of the people. So that's what the Werner does. And I thank Monica for introducing him. Now we become a team with him. We have lots of work to do together. Thank you, Werner. So the floor is yours. Take it from here. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Abu, for that beautiful introduction, and for having both Werner and I today for this incredible conversation, voicing the social imagination. But before I do some speaking, I'd actually like to start with something. As the video mentioned, Sing for Hope transforms lives through the power of the arts. That is our mission. And during these COVID pandemic times, we've had to do a lot of shifting. The stages were dark. They're just starting to open up in certain parts of the world. And during this time, we came up with an idea. And that idea was simple. We called it Sing for Hope Grams. Think of old time telephone sort of singing telegrams that were delivered door to door. But in this version, they were delivered via Zoom. So without further ado, I'm going to sing a little song for you. Some of you may know it. It's called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And this is my Sing for Hope Gram to all of you watching and listening today. When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the road. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away beyond the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow.
Wow, wow. What a beautiful start into this. And I was just thinking, Monica, this is how all sessions should start. We have so many online sessions and so many Zoom meetings with so many people because it lifts us up. I guess it's the first
Absolutely.
proof of how the arts, or in this case, especially music, can lift us up. But first of all, I want to say thank you for this wonderful performance. And of course, I feel very much privileged that you brought me in, as Professor Yunus said, and of course I'm privileged and honored to be part of this series as a moderator. So I'm the one raising the questions, or let's say we try to go into a dialogue. Monica, you have done so many things. Of course, we have heard you started with Sing for Hope, and then the famous pianos into the public. And then the grants, you just did the grant for us, which was beautiful. But then also the whole topic of, COVID came up, and you started new endeavors. And in COVID, we saw a bit of, and I'm curious how you feel about it, and how you saw a bit of I would even say a contradictory view on the arts or music. On one hand, we saw it all the time in all social media, and we saw the singing Italians out of the balconies for the others, and you started amazing programs. On the other hand, we still saw that when it came to regulation, that the art sector was not treated well, even though there was, you could say, another proof that this is a basic language. We're not talking about, a nice to have. What is your view, and what did you start, especially also in these times during COVID?
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. I'm so delighted that we're in this conversation together. As I said when we were started, that this is not so much about me dominating a conversation, but conversation includes this network, and that's what I love so much about having you in this, is that you are such a beacon of that network that we are trying to build, and particularly for artists in a post-COVID world. What does that mean? I think that yes, it's true that artists were sort of the last to be thought of in the COVID times. I have many friends and colleagues who really, until recently, even until now, are not working. They have absolutely no opportunity to deliver their art, something that they've spent their entire lives cultivating. And yet we live in a society, globally speaking, that needs that art, not only for a luxury or entertainment purposes, but fundamentally for well-being. And we see that again and again. And this is the sort of the basis on which Sing for Hope was founded. Myself and my dear fellow co-founder and soprano Camille Zamora, 16 years ago, we were just students at Juilliard, but we knew that art has a powerful platform, and yet it was being used in many, many different ways, but it wasn't necessarily always at the table with politics and economics. And I know, Werner, we spoke about that many years ago when we met, and I'm delighted to say that I think right now, in many ways, a light has been shown on that very thing, which is that artists have a unique power to transform, to heal, to uplift and enliven. And this COVID moment, as my father likes to say, there is no going back. And for artists, I feel that that's very, very much the case. There is no going back. Who among the artists has transformed, has pivoted? They're the leaders in that right now. If you can't be on a stage, we'll deliver it via Zoom. If you can't be in the theater, we'll figure out 15 different ways to mash all these little Zoom boxes and create a play. The creativity and the innovation is core to being an artist, because there are no guarantees in this work of creation. And I think that's a very important point. And that's something that we have lived these 16 months at Sing for Hope. How do we innovate?
And you were very innovative, just because you said how to innovate. You were very flexible during this period. It's, as I said, it's not just, it's a beautiful endeavor what you do with the pianos, and then you also go into schools and go into hospitals, and via the grams you bring it now virtually into people's homes. But you have done other things too. Let us know a little bit more, and then we talk about creativity and those
yes, absolutely So I'll start with, I wanted to start this conversation with the Sing for Hope Graham, because that is how we started. We were not able to go into hospitals as we used to do in pre-pandemic times. We were not able to go into schools, children were home. And so we started to think about how can we access artists and connect them with communities who really truly need them. And so our first sort of product, if you will, was the Sing for Hope Graham. And it was very simply that people would fill out an order form. They would pay for this singing telegram of sorts, a Sing for Hope Graham. And we would then also, a major pivot for us as an organization, would pay the artist. Everything before the pandemic was volunteer based. Every artist that worked for Sing for Hope in the before times was a volunteer. They came to trainings, they went into hospitals, they went into schools, they painted those pianos, those incredible Sing for Hope artist design pianos, out of their love for the public art project that was being done. During this time, we made a very conscious choice that artists, particularly I'm sure globally speaking, absolutely, but I can point to a very critical very critical data point in the United States. According to Americans for the Arts, 95% of artists were underemployed or completely unemployed during this time. That's a staggering statistic. And so we made the choice, even though we had not budgeted for it and we didn't know where it would come from, that we would pay the artists for that. So Sing for Hope Grahams was a model where we paid the artists to deliver this 3 to 5 minute, really musical connection point. And it was a wonderful thing. It went very successfully. We had many people buying them and many artists employed because of it. It wasn't an enormous amount of money for the artists, but it was something in this time when they needed to connect and they needed to be paid for that connection. So this was one sort of pivot that we made very early on in the pandemic, and it still continues today. We delivered Sing for Hope Grahams for Father's Day this past weekend here in the United States. We've delivered Sing for Hope Grahams as far away as New Zealand, trying to figure out all of the technology and the time differences. And it was a bit of a technical feat for us, an organization that was not in the business of trying to figure out the tech platforms and aspects of it. But like you said, artists are flexible, they're innovative, and they're able to sort of figure things out because they're creatively engaged. So that was just, that was one of our first pivots. And then in terms of our other major project that we've just celebrated 100 days at the Javits Center. And that's something that I would love to talk about. And I think you were referencing. Sing for Hope had 7 days a week programming at the Javits Center. The Javits Center is one of the largest, if not the largest, vaccination site in the United States. Located in New York City, they have tens of thousands of people going through their doors to get COVID vaccines. So as this was in process, and as there was an enormous opportunity for us to bring artists into that space, as you probably know, you have to sit and wait once you've received the vaccine for 15 minutes. That's a very nerve-wracking 15 minutes to wonder, oh, will my arm swell up? Will I have a bad reaction? And for people like me who don't like needles, this can be very, very nerve-wracking. Plus, you're going into a center where it's almost like an airport. You're standing on a line, you're waiting to give your information, you have your little card. It's a process that can bring up a lot of emotion. So what we did at Sing for Hope is we went to the leadership at Javits, who was incredibly welcoming to us. And we said, listen, we have the best artists in New York City and in the country who are dying to come in and are dying to perform. Can we make a partnership? Which we did. And so we just celebrated 100 days. We're over that marker now, 100 days of 7-day-a-week programming that employed over 300 artists. Every day, there were 3 to 5 artists in Javits Center playing from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So for 2 hours every day, we had wonderful instrumentalists, violinists, pianists, cajon, violists, cellists, harp, you name it, all kinds of instruments who would come in and play music from Bach to Broadway tunes to Katy Perry and everything in between. And as the people sat there, for their 15 minutes, they were enjoying this music. And the thing that happened, which was so exciting for us, is that the doctors and the nurses came to us and they said, why aren't you here longer? We said, oh, how is it affecting people? And they said, well, it's very clear to us that we get less patient anxiety calls during that time. Our work goes down because of the live music that Sing for Hope is bringing to the Javits Center. There are less calls for panic attacks, anxiety attacks. So this is something that we're extremely proud of. And we are in the process of working with the New York Department of Health to quantify that in a study. So we're just awaiting their confirmation for that, but very exciting.
I still get goosebumps because I saw a feature, and I guess we see something later, but just on this topic, arts and health, also because in my view, it had so many beautiful ingredients of the power of the arts. And if I say ingredients, there is the beauty. And even Pope Francis recently gave a lecture about the beauty and the arts delivering beauty to the world, that we all, and I'm saying deliberately, all need beauty in our life. This is one. The other thing is you pay the artist, you mentioned it, by the way, which is also giving value to something like buying in, like social entrepreneurs or social businesses who then have actually a value by pricing a product. And I think this is something which is very often lacking, by the way, in the field of arts. And you have done this. And the other thing is you made arts with this amazing thing accessible to everybody. But going back to the power of the arts for health, as you said, there are, the doctors, what they gave us feedback, but there are already, like in UK and in other countries, and those things, social prescription using the arts, using music, especially as a therapy form. And I guess it's also a little bit the future for patients, for long COVID patients. And I don't know how you see it, but it's also proof, or another proof, that this is not a luxury. This is not something, okay, wonderful singing Monica on a screen, and it's a nice to have, and it's a beautiful starting point. It's more. It is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really the crux of it. If we're talking about voicing the social imagination, that is the imagination that I have, which is that people, not just in the UK, who seem to be further ahead in this arts in health concept, that the social prescribing of listening to music 3 times a day will have this health outcome. And that's when the hospital administrations and healthcare industry, the healthcare industry as a whole starts to wake up and say, oh, this is absolutely something that will improve our health outcomes. And I think that's very exciting, is that you're seeing that burgeoning field really start to flourish. It's flourishing in the UK. The social prescribing is already very much in place. And particularly, as you said, for long COVID, this is something that's extremely important. I know the UK has a wonderful culture of choirs. And for singers during COVID, it was particularly difficult. And it was particularly difficult because the idea that when you sing, there are many more aerosols that are released into the air. So if you have a group of 10, 15, 20, 100 people standing shoulder to shoulder and singing together, it is very much therapeutic, but it is also dangerous when the threat of spread was such an issue. So, for example, I am an artist lecturer at Carnegie Mellon University, and all the universities that have schools of music had a very difficult time. How can I teach my students when I can't be in the same room with them and they can't sing? So this was also sort of a very difficult thing to maneuver. How do we do this? And so many choirs in some communities, the only outlet for togetherness, particularly elders, but also youth, it was a very difficult thing. So it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful thing to be in a choir. I know that is one of the social prescriptions that is handed out. And I think that it's incredible to breathe together as one does in a choir. It's incredible to have the experience of singing together. And again, the health outcomes for things like choirs. I only use choirs as an example. There's so many other ways, whether you play an instrument, whether you sing together, whether you write songs together. There is so much data about how that improves health outcomes. And I'm excited that this is something that's hitting many universities now, certainly in the United States. And I think it will be long-term. Not only will it be wonderful for the long haul COVID patients, but it will also, I think, open up the field even wider to have high-level artists, and this is important, high-level artists going into a field where they feel adequately paid, embedded into community, and have the kind of outcomes, health outcomes, community connection outcomes that we want to be seeing with this work.
Yeah, it's beautifully described. Even here in Austria, we have now the first pilots going on for these long COVID patients. And actually the doctors or the health system, they lack measures. And they say, no, the most important thing, as you described, it's really all about breathing. And the most beautiful, and again, I use deliberately beautiful, the word beauty. It's not just breathing as such, it's really like breathing with beauty, and also breathing, as you describe it, beautiful with somebody else in a choir. It's this togetherness. That's very often we describe all these kind of initiatives. It's twofold. One, it's for the individual well-being, as you described it, but the other thing is it has, as you also described it, an immense community, an immense social cohesion effect. And that's why maybe turning a bit into more a society level, Sing for Hope, you have it in the title. I mean, and I guess one of the things we all lacked in these strange and weird times, and also even before with all the crises we had, is hope. And it's interesting, even from a business point of view, an economy point of view, that hope is the only driver, for investments, they would say, and the business people would say, and I'm going now a little bit into economy and business, they would say and talk about reimagining. We have to reimagine. We have to think out of the box. We have to give people hope so that, or the economy hope so that they would invest. We have to be creative. But very often they don't think about the artists, or that arts initiatives could serve as thinkers out of the box, being bridge builders, giving hope. Why?
Well, I don't know why, because I think I like to be hopeful. Speaking of hope, and so I like to think that that is changing. I think that there's such a drive to outcomes and data collection that sometimes the focus becomes so incredibly laser focused that one doesn't have the sort of holistic view of what it means to be in community. Whether it's a corporation or a nonprofit or a community group, there's still a core of people at the center of it. And so if you don't address that holistically, I think somewhere down the line you will have issues. I mean, it is why corporations have large, HR departments and team building exercises. And, speaking of team building, we had many companies that came to Sing for Hope to say, do you do these Sing for Hope grams for team meetings? Could we do it for our team? I know our team they really miss going to the theater. They miss this. Can you have a Broadway singer come to us? Can you have an opera singer come to us? Could you have a cellist come to us? Why? Because we're humans and we have other needs besides just, the data output that is relied upon to drive companies forward. It's the same throughout the world. That doesn't change. So I think, again, I am hopeful that because there are so many organizations, universities that are trying to meld the data with the holistic humanities aspects of what organizations like Sing for Hope. And again, even that, today we're talking about Sing for Hope, but there are so many in the network, speaking of networks, that are doing this kind of work. And that brings me great joy and excitement, because I think it's a sort of very tiny turning of the ship. and it's a big ship to turn when we're talking about the arts industry as a whole. I think whether you're an opera company, a dance company, a theater company, the arts as a whole are looking to see how can we embed ourselves in community, just like corporations and nonprofits are looking to see how can we take care of our people. If we don't take care of our people, we don't have, the talent that we need to drive those outputs. So it's very, very much symbiotic. And I think that that's something that you see companies that are paying attention to this, because let's face it, in the conversations that I've had, many top tier corporations, their productivity is just as high as it was pre-COVID, in some cases higher. So what is it that's missing? The human aspect is something that still needs to be embedded. Otherwise, you will lose that talent. That talent will go elsewhere because they're not being addressed from the sort of humanities perspective.
Yeah, I especially like also you refer to be hopeful. I'm hopeful too. There is a nice quote of a famous community choreographer. He got famous because of a big documentary. And he always said, there is the possibility of hope. And I think we should be hopeful. That's one. And I think we see it already also, as you mentioned it, there is a demand. I deliberately call it, there is a demand. We see that in our community arts network, for instance, there is a big demand, not just what we talked about, arts and health, and as health measures. There is a big demand when it comes to the well-being of individuals in businesses, what to do, building up choirs and things like that. But there is another big demand because of the urgency of the topic, especially in the whole topic of climate change. Because there is such an urgency, and there we see something, that we have all the data, scientists have all the data, everything is there. And we had immense, expensive communications about it, and still it didn't work, and it didn't really move the people to change their behavior. Now it is interesting for me to see that actually they came to us demanding artists for a translation, an artistic translation of the topic into the hearts and the minds of the people, because they realized it didn't work yet. So we are seeing this coming and demanding from different angles. And I guess this is really beautiful. And I think we have to work on this. And you mentioned another topic, the data topic. The data, we have already a lot of evaluations of the power of initiatives and yours and things like that. But it's very fragmented. And I think there is and that was another motivation for us to also work with you and work with these initiatives, to bring them together and bring these evaluations in a readable or visible, more visible or client-friendly way to the people and to the politicians, to those who can influence and those who have the power to change. But there is a demand. Do you see that demand too? Do you see the demand in education? We talk a lot about education and social emotional learning. Sometimes I feel they talk about it and peace and everything, but they don't demand the arts, even though who else can bring social emotional learning to the kids?
Yeah,
What
so many things to unpack there, Werner, because you make such a terrific number of points just in that statement. First of all, I think that health is 80 to 90% of the social determinants of health are sort of where you live, access to water, if you have access to education. It's so much less about sort of chronic health things, and it's much more about, staying healthy, and so how do we sort of frame that? And again, to me, it's about a humanities aspect, right? I think that many times the arts are kind of the ignored cousin of science and math. And this is something that I very much want to work against, because again, the idea is that, we're having these very important conversations, whether it's climate, whether any of the topics of the SDGs, right? And I think it's interesting that the arts address so many of the SDGs, but it hasn't necessarily been voiced in that way. It's sort of like way down the page. And so when the SDGs were announced, we took a very bold decision, which was we wanted to align ourselves with some of the SDGs that we felt strongly about, and that through our work we were addressing. Education, good education. good health and well-being, sustainable communities and sustainable cities and communities. Now, I think if you can frame all the organizations that we're working with on this call, everyone represents some field that the SDGs address. If you can reframe what your organization is doing to be helpful in your small community to those SDGs, that's already a great step. And it also forces you to sort of articulate how it is you're doing that work. So I'm doing this work at Sing for Hope for health and well-being, how I want to make sure that people, when they're receiving their vaccines, and this is, yes, this is a finite amount of time, but most likely there will be additional, shots in the future that you'll have to take. And why not include artists in that moment? It's a community driving thing to have the arts embedded. Similarly, what you're talking about with climate, they're coming to you because they need artists to translate and make it known in different ways. And I think that's something that artists do so well, is they're able to translate things. One of the things, again, I referenced it before, that I'm most excited about is the sort of translation that will happen between public health, public policy, and the arts. If they can come together, I think they will very much help community health. That's another big focus of ours at Sing for Hope. And those studies, those courses of studies to help equip the next level, the 21st century artist to come out of their school program, they will understand how to do that. And it's not to downplay the importance of having our theaters be active community centers. It is just an additive way of looking at the arts holistically and ensuring that, once again, the artists and arts are not put to the side as something that's a luxury, as you say, but it's something that is vital and that has to be incorporated into education from the youngest children.
And the beauty is, and I've seen programs they sing now if they have really integrated arts also into public educational systems, like in primary schools, they sing now earth songs or songs for the earth, and they socialize their parents. And of course, as we all know, that the neuroscience is very clear. Experience is more important than information. Still, our school system, I think it's 90% information. So we don't follow at all the latest scientists. And I like also the mix, as you said. And I've seen these small children then talking and forcing their parents to do something against climate change. So I like what you mentioned also, this mix of arts and science, and you already started the conversation into the whole advocacy part. What can we do that what you do is also really integrated? I very often talk about is part of the game, part of the bigger games in sense of businesses, all these important topics, the basic topics as health for everyone. What can we do together? I would also say, as we have built up a network, and you are doing this, to really bring those important, and you're doing it, of course, but still, what we should do even more to bring it on those tables, that art is embedded, not as that the delegated things once a month or once a year we go to the theater or so, or we do something artistically, rather than being part of the game, sitting as an emancipated voice on these decision tables. What can we do?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, first of all, something that artists are really good at is they get into the habit of being uncomfortable. And many of these conversations are uncomfortable. It's sort of it's an exercise in speaking truth to power, which is not easy. We're seeing that all over the world in so many different ways, the health disparities, the racial disparities. But the first step is to be uncomfortable and to say something. And so whether it's a very small thing to a very large thing, it's about each person's capacity to, it's an old adage, be the change that you want to see in the world. And sometimes that's so large and it feels so big. But I think that, part of it is being able to speak up and to voice that social imagination. What is it that you want to see out there? You know, what is it that, you know, if you have children, are you having those conversations with your kids? Sometimes, I mean, it's amazing. I have a 6-year-old son, and speaking to him about what he would like to see is fascinating, because still the imagination is so live. And so my first sort of exercise would be to really try to unlock that. And instead of saying, oh, it won't work, we can't do that, it'll never work, they won't do this, I can't do that. How about saying I can do that? How about figuring out what are the small things that you can do? Because look, there's there are unlimited activities for people, unlimited organizations for people to be involved in. And I think it just depends on how it is that you are personally engaged. One thing that I know at Sing for Hope that Camille and I do is we love to have conversations with other organizations that are doing similar work, because again, it comes down to the network. Nobody needs to be working in silos. And yes, sometimes it's hard to enter an organization because they have a slightly different way of doing things, but the coming together and really forming a network and understanding who else in your state, country is doing that kind of work, and how can you connect, and setting aside time to see what those points of connections are. You know, I didn't really even realize that there were multiple organizations that are really trying to tackle arts in health, and to be in conversation with those organizations is extremely important. But I think some people, they really tend to focus on the day-to-day, and during this pandemic time, it's almost enough to keep your head above water, whether it's personally or professionally or organizationally. And so it requires a good deal of focus and determination. But I think, you know, that's why I'm so excited, frankly, about this conversation, is that here we are, we're in conversation and we're in connection, Werner, because I want to turn the conversation to CAN, the Community Arts Network, which you are driving and with your wonderful team. And we're just happy to be part of that network, Sing for Hope being part of the CAN network, and in conversation so that we can bridge the gap between the across the miles to be closer together in our work, and to focus the efforts that so many of us are trying to do within the artistic lane, but also to sort of elbow our way into all of the other lanes that seem to want to ignore the role of the 21st century artists in creating a better world.
Yes, and I think we are grateful too, because the network actually is dependent on open-minded initiatives and open-minded artists like you are, to really join forces to again put this topic on the power tables into the field of education, field of business, and so on and so forth. And you mentioned a very important, and I saw it also as a question in the chat, you know, the topic of art and transformation. Sometimes I use also the argument you were saying, you know, very often the art, it's not just thinking, the artists are not just thinking out of the box. They are very often, I'm not allowed to say a pain in, but they are very often also the ones who really show other ways, at least.
Yeah.
And there, I think literally there has been no evolution or real society revolution without art. Just think of the falling of the wall in Eastern Europe. Think of Black Lives Matter. I think that never ever you would have seen. And in education, sometimes I argue, it's funny, you know, I argue with our education people in the foundation and say, have you, when you talk about education, not talk about the arts, there's something missing. You wouldn't find any philosopher who wouldn't talk about arts with business without talking, about education without talking about the arts. It's for them integrated. We just disintegrated those things. So I'm really happy that we joined forces in this, and I'm very grateful with it, because there was the question of arts and transformation, or archivism. That's a new term which came up, and we try to support this, but we are definitely, of course, dependent on very diverse, from small to larger institutions also, who really say we have to change this. And we have also, I say this, I mean, that's also beautiful what you do. You change, you're very flexible. That's what sometimes we miss from bigger institutions. And then I hope I don't miss one. We have to talk also about the open art topic. And
Yes.
But I leave it now to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, one thing on the topic of artivism, that's one other lecture series that in partnership with the Gottsman Libraries, Teachers College, Columbia University, Adelphi University, and Sing for Hope, we started a lecture program that meets every Monday. And that too has been a place for artists, activists to tell their stories. And again, in the sense of network, in the sense of spreading the joy of what others are doing so that we can be in connection. This was also another wonderful opportunity that came on our radar. We were very excited to be a partner in this Artivism lecture series. So that was one other thing that came out of this time. The other thing that I did want to just touch base on, and thank you for mentioning that, Werner, was that, you know, as the pandemic does what it's going to do, and in certain places things are opening back up, in other places it's still a, you know, disaster situation. And so I think that we will be in this kind of difficult scenario for quite a while. And even after it is, you know, let's say people are vaccinated and in all parts of the world they feel comfortable being in community again, what happens to the people that don't get to leave their elder care facility, the hospital? You know, they're there for treatment for a long time. The things that we were trying to address as an organization beforehand will continue, unfortunately, because that is the state of the world. So we were trying to figure out, if we can't be in hospitals, if we can't be in schools, how do we still access those audiences? How do we do that? And so once again, we turned to technology and this, you know, wonderful thing called Zoom, and we created something called Open Arts. And I wonder if we can show the quick little video about this platform now. Thank you.
Open Arts is a free online arts platform that offers live performances featuring the brightest stars of Broadway, opera, and the world's leading stages. The nonprofit Sing for Hope created Open Arts as part of its mission to provide arts for all and to bring hope, healing, and connection to millions of people around the world. Open Arts gives you a front row seat to over 100 live performances each month with a wide variety of programming available for all ages. The easy-to-use interactive website connects you directly with the artists and to other audience members from across the country. There is no cost to access the site or to watch any of our performances. 100% of all donations go directly to support our artists. Experience the arts live and up close, and connect with other art lovers today at Open Arts.
So again, to reach the audiences in elder care facilities, to reach those who aren't able to travel, to reach those in schools, parents who are still trying to teach their children from home, we created this platform so that people could go to it at the prescribed times of day and watch a Broadway performer sing. They could watch somebody who is it's not necessarily arts therapy, but we have a dear friend who is an arts therapist who was providing and had a group for long COVID survivors, and how are they working together, and just a safe space for them to connect and talk about what they're experiencing. We have painting classes. We have, you know, wonderful stories being read to children in the morning. So this is really a calendar that anyone can access. It is free, and all you have to do is sign up and look at the calendar. And then after the performance, you can even talk directly to the artist and ask them questions. Right now, the time zones are very much US based, but we are hoping to expand the offerings to accommodate, you know, our global community. And this was our way of saying, okay, let's try it. Let's see how it works. And let's see, again, we're paying the artists for their time. These are wonderful artists who are not necessarily yet able to go back to work. Some of them are, some of them are not. This is one way to connect. And so we're very excited about where Open Arts will be. And it's not to say that when we are able, that we won't be going back in person. But if you want to talk about silver linings, this is one of those times where you go, okay, well, we are able to look at things from a hybrid perspective.
I really adore your flexible approach, and I think you show to be innovative, which we're talking also a lot about innovation also in the business world too. We have to wrap up, I see. For me, this is also literally when I was hearing now this example and also the grams, it reminded me a little bit about lullabies, like this beauty which comes to you. And even in this conversation, I was thinking when I was listening to you, how come that we don't realize that the arts or music is actually our common basic language? It's something which we have to learn as a language. We have to learn languages in schools, and I guess we should also learn to sing with each other, because as you in the video you see even the family connection. And how can it be? And you can be connected with people who don't speak your language via singing together or via even But anyway, if I would ask you the last question, because I saw also, and this is so much linked to the work of your father too, I have to say, because I saw the words dreaming, reimagination, especially these words, creativity, we touched upon. My last question, and then I give it back to the beautiful people from the Yunus Center, is what is your personal biggest dream in all this?
Oh, wow.
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. Well, I think continuing to voice the social imagination. I mean, if I had to say it very briefly, obviously there's so many bullet points in that. I think what I'm excited about is bringing the artists to the forefront in this next, in these next times. I'm excited that there are universities who are exploring this and making the pairing, because as you said, we learn languages. Artists need to learn the language of public health and public policy, and public policymakers, and they need to be able to translate those conversations, because at the end of the day, I think that we are doing similar work. It's about being able to create something together that forwards the thinking of how to continue to build communities, and that's very exciting to me.
Thank you so much, Monica, for this
Thank you, Werner. Thank you.
Insights also, and what you do, and one can literally feel your passion in it. And you're also, and I call it now, fight that this becomes something part of the game. And with this, thank you so much. And I'm really privileged to have this conversation with you. And I give it back now to our wonderful friends from the Yunus Center. I think it's the time. Thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank you.
These insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. First, I would like to thank Monica and a big round of applause for your wonderful, wonderful opening piece. Indeed, as Mr. Werner said, that I wish all of our lecture series opened up like this, and it really refreshes, you even after a tiring day, listening to music really makes you feel good. I was just thinking, at times of stress, I'm not going over like the definition of quantum physics or anything, at that time, some like light music or whatever, that is what refreshes you. And, at a time when there's so much, chaos in the world due to the pandemic, healing through music is important. And as you rightly said, there's so many ways that can be done, and Zoom being one of the platform technology helping us, and really, really wonderful to see the ways you are reaching out to people in the hospitals and offering such services like the platform you just showed. I will definitely check it out, and I also request our audience to check it out. As you mentioned, it's a free platform, and it's open for all, and we look forward to enjoying all the music and arts and everything that's on the platform. So thank you for introducing us to all that. It really has been a wonderful conversation, and we look forward to continuing this. This lecture series is for all of our audience members, especially the students from the YSBC's universities. Many students are not being able to go to college, but are doing classes from home. And I'm sure there are a lot of music and art students here. And if these Sing for Hope's activities and the activities she mentioned are of your interest, do connect with us. I'm sure Monica was always ready to help and She will be able to assist us, and you'll see her, and of course Mr. Werner, in our future events. So Sing for Hope, singforhope.org is the website to check out. Please do check it out and stay connected with our activities. Thank you very, very much again. We're really, really honored to have both of you in this conversation, and look forward to having everyone again back in Social Business Day, which is coming very, very soon. On June 28th is the starting day of Social Business Day. It's going to be 5 days this time. We're going to have them primarily virtual, and it's going to be continuous happening over these 5 days, and you'll be able to watch them on our business pedia. You'll get the links, and the Zoom links will be also on our websites. So now I request the tech team to kindly play a slideshow on Social Business Day and our upcoming events. Until then, thank you very, very much. We look forward to having everyone back again in our upcoming events. Thank you very much, and bye-bye for now. Thank you very much, everyone. See you again soon. Join us for Social Business Day coming in on June